short intro to what I wanted to say. Yes, we will definitely talk about grammar today and very interesting aspects of grammar, even exciting aspects of grammar. The title itself is worth your attention. English Grammar Puzzles. A puzzle as a noun, as you may know, is kind of a game, like a jigsaw puzzle, but it's also a verb. And do you know what it means as a verb? If something puzzles you, it means to cause to feel confused, right? So that's what I hear from students from time to time. English grammar is puzzling. Some people think that it's a little bit complicated. Actually, if you compare it to grammars of other languages, well, it's not as complicated as some people may think. But definitely, many things in English grammar are quite logical and easy to explain. Other things in English grammar can be quite puzzling. So, English grammar puzzles. Right. So, let's have a look at a few metaphors of grammar. This is just a bunch of metaphors that I collected from my students. Maybe you have yours. It would be very interesting for me to learn what is your metaphor of grammar. For some people, grammar is like a skeleton. A skeleton of the English language on which the whole body, muscles, and all the vital organs are built. It's a nice metaphor, isn't it? For others, grammar is a set of instructions, like an instruction manual of some piece of furniture, right? If you ask others, they will say that grammar is a big chaos, and they can't understand what's going on there. This is not true. Definitely not true. Still, others will say that grammar is the DNA of a language. For others, it's like a Bible, so they can be a little bit afraid of it. It's like a list of commands, like you shall not do this, you shall do that. I'm not sure if that's the best way to talk about grammar or to think about grammar. For others, it's like a scaffolding, which you can use when you build a structure, a building. It could be an algorithm for others. And from time to time, I hear this from students, from people I test, that grammar is a monster. It's kind of scary, that they are afraid of grammar. Some people say that grammar is what they are really very weak at. They're afraid. I'm not really sure if we should really concentrate that much on grammar when we learn language. Language has many other aspects. Grammar is definitely one of them. So what is your metaphor of grammar, I wonder? If you have a nice metaphor, use the chat in Teams and let us know what it is. Okay, so these were metaphors from many people I know. These are my favorite metaphors of grammar. This is how I tend to explain grammar to my students, at least some pieces of grammar. I tell them, think about a panel of buttons in a lift. You press this button and it takes you somewhere. You press that button and it takes you somewhere else. Or think of a cockpit of an airplane, right? It's full of many switches and buttons and gauges, and depending on which button you choose and press, you go somewhere else, or something happens. So that's the way I think about grammar. It's where you choose certain things, and depending on your choice, you go somewhere. You may want to borrow this metaphor from me, and I think it will make your life easier. Anyway, grammar is a part of language, and language changes. Language is changing. Languages have been changing. Language is changing. Languages have been changing. Which form should you choose? Maybe all of them are acceptable, depending on the context. My message is this. Grammar is a living thing, just like language is a living thing. And that's the way we also should think about it. What was correct and used and what was a norm in grammar 100 years ago may not be a norm right now, or may have changed its purpose. We will see many examples of stuff like that. And what is now thought as a mistake or some substandard way of using grammar may in the future be the norm. So that's another way I'd like you to think about grammar. And just one metaphor, or just one more, just one more way of looking at grammar. I think that people tend to follow certain grammar rules, of course, because without grammar, our communication would be distorted in many ways, in many cases, and in many ways too. What prescriptive approach means is that linguists, grammarians, again, there's a second group of them, and they say, this is what you should say. These are the rules. If you break the rules, you make mistakes. Okay. If that's what you like, you can take this approach. But as I said, the descriptive approach is better. However, if you get more freedom, you open also other doors, or you get out of your comfort zone, because you are suddenly open to many possibilities. The world is not black and white. You're not in your comfort zone where there is no will after if. And what your teachers told you about how to use present tenses may not be the only thing that is possible. And that's what we will do today in this webinar. I'm going to show you some things that are possible. And which are okay. I'm not going to teach you mistakes, of course, but I'm just going to show you what people who use English as a native language also do with their grammar. So grammar diversity is another beautiful thing to explore, because if you look at these two sentences, sentence A is, I've not finished it, and sentence B is, I haven't finished it. They look very much the same, right? But could we say that one of them is more correct than the other? It's an open question. Actually, the truth is that the first sentence, I've not finished it. Well, you can hear such structures in Scotland and among people who live in northern England. But if you travel down the south of England, the second structure is more popular. I haven't finished it. Is any of these more correct? No, they're both correct. So which one should we learn? Maybe both. Okay. Now let's take a look at the other pair. I don't know who to trust. You see the first slide only still? I'm sorry, I have a message from Maria, and she says that you can still see the first slide. Is this true? I have to be 100% sure that you can still see that you see the slide about grammar diversity. Slide 10. Slide 10. Okay. Grammar diversity. Good. Thank you. Okay. So Maria, maybe it would be a good idea for you to rejoin if you can. Okay. Maybe something's wrong with your internet. Please check it. So anyway, the second pair. I don't know who to trust, and I don't know whom to trust. The only difference is who and whom. So what's the difference? What do you think? Well, in this case, the difference is between formality. I don't know who to trust. It's just neutral English, right? Just it's neutral. It's neither informal nor formal. It's just normal. But I don't know whom to trust. Sounds like quite formal English. And actually, if you traveled back in time 100 years, whom was the norm? And now it is not the norm. The norm is who, right? So one little word changed in time and changed its purpose. Now, this is also interesting, I think. She doesn't like dogs. She don't like dogs. She don't like them dogs none. She doesn't like dogs. She don't. She don't be liking dogs at all. Now, what do you think about these sentences? Are they all correct, or maybe only the first one is correct? Well, actually, yes, they are both correct. And the only difference between them is the people and the parts of the world where they could be used by native speakers of English. So she doesn't like dogs, that's standard English. She don't like dogs, that's colloquial English. Really, people make this mistake. People who live in Britain, people who live in the United States. Actually, should we call it a mistake if that's the way people talk, right? Of course, the people who took the red pill will say this is a mistake, but you took the blue pill, and now you know that it is possible to make that choice. Not mistake, but to make this choice. She don't like them dogs none. That's G, Southern American English. She doesn't like dogs, she don't. That's H, Northern England in Yorkshire. That's how people could say the same sentence. And the last one, non-standard Irish English. She don't be liking dogs at all. I'm sorry, I cannot do the accents, but just use your imagination. You would also have to add some local accent to these sentences. So, as we can see, it's going to be really difficult to talk about mistakes today. And every time we will see an example and a question, and I'm going to ask you, is this right or is it wrong? By wrong, I will mean that it sounds too strange to be easily understood. Because actually, this is, I get this question from my students quite often. Piotr, was this a big mistake? Someone made a mistake and maybe even apologized for it. I'm very often embarrassed myself when students apologize me for their mistakes. There's nothing to apologize, right? You learn from your mistakes. But anyway, Piotr, is this a big mistake? And I say, well, it depends, right? If somebody couldn't understand you because you used this piece of grammar that way, well, somebody just didn't understand you, right? Or if you confused someone by saying something and you wanted to say something else, that's a different case. So wrong today will mean too strange to be easily understood. And this is where we begin, and I will need you to be quite active right now using the chat because I'll have tons of questions for you. And this is question number 1. Is it right or is it wrong? And I have 4 sentences. She doesn't like to be disturbed when she's working. So, B. When the post comes, I'm usually having breakfast. You look lovely when you smile. You look lovely when you're smiling. So, think about these 4 sentences and could you identify the ones which are wrong? Okay, what do you think? Let me read them again for you. She doesn't like to be disturbed when she's working. When the post comes, I'm usually having breakfast. You look lovely when you smile. You look lovely when you're smiling. She's working. Maybe this should be she works. I don't know. What do you think? You look lovely when you're smiling, like smiling right now, or you look lovely when you smile. Is it like your habit? So which ones look suspicious to you? I can see that someone is typing something. B looks suspicious to Dorota. Okay. Here's the answer. All of them are right. That's surprising, isn't it? Indeed, they are all right. And here's a little explanation. Because this is about simple present and present progressive or present continuous, right? So we use the simple present for regular and repeated actions and events. We all know that. But we can use the present progressive for things that are going on around these actions or events. And let's have a look at some more examples. At 7, when the post comes, I'm usually having breakfast. Some people say, express such an idea in this way. Native speakers. She doesn't like to be disturbed if she's working. You look lovely when you're smiling. Does it mean that you shouldn't be using simple present? For example, at 7 when the post comes, I usually have breakfast. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that some native speakers of English will use this form. And the linguists, the grammarians who took the blue pill, descriptivists, the ones who describe language, they noticed that that's the way people use grammar. They say we can use the present progressive for such things. Okay. Next example. What is the difference between these 2 sentences? I look forward to hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Any ideas? What is the difference here? Of course, simple present in the first one and present progressive or present continuous in the second, yes. But is there any difference? There is a little difference. What do you think the difference is? Well, let me show you, okay? Because that's really easy. Maybe you know it, maybe it's too simple. A is more formal than B. So that's really the way you can use, you can play around with present tenses. So some fixed phrases that are used in writing can be expressed either in simple present and then they will sound more formal, or in present continuous and they will sound less formal. A couple of examples. We write to advise you that you should do this, this, or that. Or we are writing to let you know. That's less formal. I attach my presentation on the subject of English grammar, or I'm attaching, or I am attaching. You can also play around with contractions, of course, if you want to play around with formality, right? You can adjust the level of formality with grammar, as you can see, but also with your punctuation. So, you know, it's really very hard to express what we do in Polish. Proszę pani, proszę pana, right? There's no one-to-one equivalent of that in English. But we have these tools, right? We can use grammar to express pani, panu, and punctuation, contractions as well. So, next example. 3 of these sentences mean more or less the same. More or less the same. Which one is different? Are you doing the shopping tomorrow? A. Are you going to do the shopping tomorrow? B. Will you do the shopping tomorrow? C. And D. Will you be doing the shopping tomorrow? What do you think about this? 3 of these mean more or less the same, but one is different. Which one? Yeah, they look seemingly the same. And by the way, this part of English grammar is called future forms. Every time I describe this to my students, I tell them, okay, I have two pieces of news for you. I have good news and bad news. And my students want to start with the good news most of the time, and I tell them there is no future tense in English. There's no future tense in English, they say. And I say, yes, some grammarians say that there's no future tense. That's good news. What's the bad news? The bad news is that there are 10 future forms, or 11 or 12, as some linguists say. Okay, so we can see a few future forms here. One sentence is different. Which one is it? Okay, some people say C, some people say B. Actually, it is C. So A and B and D, they ask for information, right? And C is a request to do the shopping. Will you do the shopping tomorrow, right? So, yeah, here's a little explanation and some more info about this. So, with a verb referring to an action, the phrase will you usually introduces an order or request. For example, will you turn off that music? Yes. Will you turn off that music? Or will you go shopping with me tomorrow? A request. But to ask for information about planned actions, we used a present form or the future progressive. 2 examples. When are you going to seek him? Will you be doing the shopping? And to ask about fixed plans we use present continuous. Are you doing the shopping tomorrow? Now, this may look a bit confusing, especially if you haven't talked to your teacher for a long time about future forms. But yeah, maybe that's just a nice reminder for you to explore future forms. As I said, there are 10 of them, or 11 or 12. It depends how you count them. And each future form does something else. So it's like, this panel in a lift. You press a button and it takes you somewhere else. You press this button, this grammar form, it takes you somewhere else. The funny thing about future forms is that many of them take you to the same floor. So it's just like, as if you were in a hotel. You press 5, the doors open, you just see what's outside. You travel to the 7th floor or the 8th floor. The floors look more or less the same. There are little differences only. So yeah, it's really exciting. Especially if you are a teacher. I'm not if it's exciting if you are a student, but in general, I think it is exciting. And sometimes confusing. It could be both. Which of these 2 sentences is or are right? A, B, or both? What do you think? I hear you're getting married. I've heard you're getting married. I hear you're getting married. Some people will be suspicious here, probably. And they will say, come on, it's simple present. Simple present, we use it for repeated actions, habits, facts, stuff like that. And present perfect, yeah, why not? I've heard result. So, but you may be even more suspicious because I've already told you that almost anything is possible in grammar as long as you get the message across. So maybe I won't surprise you by saying that they are both correct. Yeah. What's the explanation? The explanation is as follows. I hear you're getting married. That's present tense, right? So the present tense forms I hear or I see are very often used to introduce pieces of news which one has heard, read, or seen on television. 2 more examples. I hear Alice is expecting a baby. I see the firemen are going on strike. Just a new way of saying things. Maybe for you, right? Some other verbs can be used like this. Common examples are understand and gather. By gather, we mean not collect here, but just understand. And these are often used to check information. 2 sentences. I understand you're moving to a new job. Yes, that's right. I gather you didn't like the party. What makes you say that? You could easily use I understand in the second one too, of course. So yes, use the present tense in such situations, and actually it's a very popular way of building sentences in such contexts. So if you're not used to expressing yourself in that way, you can just as well start doing it from now on. Okay. What do you think of the future structure in this sentence? And the sentence goes like this. I'm going to be working late tomorrow. I'm going to be working late tomorrow. I'm going to be working late tomorrow. Don't you think that there's too many ings in here, right? So is it normal? A. Is it correct but unusual? Or maybe it's incorrect? Again, take a chance. What do you think? If you will be surprised, you will learn something. So you're not risking anything but learning something new. You say C, incorrect. That's what many people would think. but actually it's really normal. So let's look at it again. I'm going to be working late. Some people would think that what is normal would be I'm going to work late tomorrow, right? But here's a little note about expressing certainty. So 100% probable. Expressing certainty about the present or past. For this, we can use will, of course, to talk about the present, to say that what we think is probable or certainly the case, blah, blah, blah. There's somebody at the door, that'll be the postman. There's somebody at the door, that will be the postman. So you're like 100% sure. They'll be the postman. Don't phone them now. They'll be having dinner. Because at that time, they have dinner. They'll be having dinner. And a progressive form, and not but, right? And a progressive form of the going to structure is also possible here. People just use it that way. I'm going to be working all day tomorrow, so I won't have time to shop. That's it. If it's new to you, then great. And you won't be surprised if you hear it from a native speaker. I'm going to be working late tomorrow. Is this something that you really should start using? Well, why not? But if you are more used to saying, I'm going to work late tomorrow, just stay with this. Okay, choose the best explanation of Anne's reply. Short dialogue. Joe says, don't you think John will come to the meeting? And Anne says, no, he will have forgotten. So what's the explanation? A, he's already forgotten, or he may remember now, but he'll forget before the meeting takes place. He will have forgotten. Will. He will have forgotten. What do you think? He will have forgotten. You're thinking, maybe you're tired, maybe you're thinking, maybe you're suspicious, maybe you have seen too many, both are correct. Well, he's already forgotten is the right answer here, right? He's already forgotten, but I hope you can see my point here. There's will, and here we're talking about the past, right? So how does it work? That's the way it works. Will have plus past participle can express certainty about the past. So it's as if we were saying surely. A few more examples. As you will have noticed, there's a new secretary in the front office. As you will have noticed. It's no use expecting Barry to turn up. He will have forgotten. Dear sir, you will certainly have received a form from us explaining blah, blah, blah. We can't go and see them now. They will have gone to bed. So what's the second explanation? The second explanation could be maybe you and your teacher or teachers looked at some part of grammar which is called modals in the past, right? Modal verbs in the past. Modal verbs, they can express probability. It's one of their functions. Should, can, must. Will is just another modal verb, actually. So if you use will, it means that, and if you use will to express probability, it means that you're almost 100% sure, right? So there's someone at the door. That'll be the postman. Maybe it's not as strong as that must be the postman, but it's really, high on the probability scale. So modal verbs, if you add a modal verb like should, and then you add have, and then you add past participle, what you get is, for example, you should have asked him, or that should have been a nice film, or that could have been a nice film, or that might have been a nice film. That's the same way they're using will here, right? And again, if you're like slightly confused about this, I'd like to refer you to some good grammar of English or your teacher, and you can ask your teacher, hey, why don't you tell me something more about modals in the past and how these work? Maybe you won't find this information in the the most available grammar book or grammar explanation, but this is the way English native speakers or native speakers of English build their sentences with will too. Okay, right or wrong? I have to get used to saying these sentences aloud, because that's not the way I would say them. I'm having to work very hard at the moment. I'm having to work very hard at the moment. I'm having to work very hard at the moment. What time have you got to be back home? What time have you got to be back home? What time have you got to be back home? What time have you got to be back home? Right or wrong? I'm having to work. As I said, I'm not used to expressing my such ideas in this way. But does it mean that's wrong? Actually, it isn't, because both sentences again are right. Got is usually added to present tense auxiliary verb forms, operators, right? When do you have to be back is more or less the same as when have you got to be back. But there's one more piece of information here. Have got to is not normally used to talk about repeated obligation, right? So have a look at this. I usually have to be at work at 8. That's regular obligation. You don't use got in such situations. Progressive forms, such as I'm having to work very hard at the moment, are also possible. To talk about temporary continued obligation. Temporary continued obligation. What is temporary continued obligation anyway? Maybe something like this. I'm having to work very hard at the moment because this quarter of the year is very busy, or has been very busy. Which do you choose? It depends. Okay. Past and perfect verbs. We looked at some present verb examples, and now past and perfect. Okay, let's activate the participants now. I'm activating you. Which is the best continuation of the sentence, A, B, or C? I'm busy today, so I'd rather you will come tomorrow. I'd rather you come tomorrow, or I'd rather you came tomorrow. I'm not going any further without you being active in the chat. So I'll take a sip of coffee and wait for your answers. B, right? It sounds, thank you, Stina. That sounds sensible, right? Wouldn't it sound even more sensible to use will, because we're thinking about the future? Okay, this piece of grammar is it's not something esoteric, something that you will not find in grammar books. Actually, this is a piece of standard English grammar, but it's a little bit unusual. The answer C is right with simple past verb. Remember, it's not simple past, it's a simple past verb, right? Just like in conditionals, right? We don't use past perfect or simple past tense. We just use verbs in these structures. So I'm busy today, so I'd rather you came tomorrow. Yeah, I'd rather you came tomorrow. I'd rather you didn't do that. Have a look. We can use would rather to say that a person would prefer somebody to do something, and in such cases we use a special structure with a past tense. Would rather, subject, and past tense. I'd rather you went home now. No, I'd rather you go home now. That sounds a bit strange, odd, right? In English. So is it a big mistake? It sounds strange. What doesn't sound strange is what you think sounds strange. So yeah, tomorrow's difficult. I'd rather you came next weekend. I'd rather you came next weekend. My wife would rather we didn't see each other anymore. Shall I open the window? I'd rather you didn't. Okay, so yes, if you haven't heard about this, if you haven't used your grammar in this way, in such contexts, that's something you can take with you from this event this evening. I'd rather you past tense. Okay, here are three invitations. Three invitations. In what way are they different? A, B, and C. I wonder if you'd like to have dinner with me. I wondered if you'd like to have dinner with me. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me. What are the differences? What do you think? I wonder, simple present. I wondered, simple past. I'm not asking you which is right or which is wrong, but I'm just asking you to think about the differences. And the last one, I was wondering. So let's see. Actually, in here, it's a matter of politeness and not time, not tense. And in English grammar, there's something that we call distancing. So we do this distancing by using past and progressive forms. And what this distancing does is that it makes our sentences less direct, and more polite. Okay, have a look at some examples I'm sure you have heard. So, short explanation: we can make questions, requests, and offers less direct and more polite by using past tenses. Common phrases are: I wondered, I thought, I hoped, did you want? I wondered if you were free this evening. You see, you use the past tense and you adjust the formality to a higher level here. I thought you might like some flowers. You see, I thought, past, might, past. Did you want cream with your coffee, sir? Did you want cream with your coffee, sir? Would it be a mistake to say, do you want coffee? Do you want cream with your coffee, sir? Of course it wouldn't. It would be less formal, definitely. Past progressive forms such as I was thinking, I was wondering, I was hoping make sentences even less direct. So I was hoping we could meet next week. I was hoping here doesn't really have to mean that, all hope is lost because, that you're talking about the past. It's more or less the same as I hope we could meet next week. or yes, something like this. So I was hoping we could meet next week. Means actually you still hope that it's possible, but you're just creating a more formal, more indirect sentence. Okay, which is more neutral? Natural. Natural. That's a slight difference. Which is more natural? What do we have here? Barbara's phoned today. She wants to borrow your bike. Barbara phoned today. She wants to borrow your bike. So the difference is, if I'm correct, present perfect in the first sentence and simple past in the second. I don't know if you've noticed, but teachers of English have this tendency for promoting present perfect. So maybe A is more natural. What do you think? Barbara's phoned today. What do I normally say to my students? I say, use present perfect to talk about results. There was some past activity and we have a result now, right? So Barbara's phoned today. She wants to borrow your bike. So maybe that's more correct. But you're saying B, Dorota and Yola, right? And I think you're right, because B is more natural. But why? And here's a little story. With definite expressions of time up to now, like today, this week, this year, perfect and past tenses are often both possible. We prefer the present perfect if we are thinking of the whole period, it's not finished, whole period up to now. And we prefer the simple past if we are thinking about a finished part of that period, right? The whole period, it's not a closed period, it's not about the past. This is past. This is the whole period up to now, so it's not finished. And if we talk about a finished part of that period, simple past. Compare. I haven't seen John this week. I haven't, present perfect, right? I haven't seen John this week. The whole week up to now. Present perfect, more natural. I saw John this week. And he said, so earlier in the week is still going on, right? But I saw him earlier in the week. So there's no real need to use present perfect here. So if your teacher corrects you, you can say, but it's about a finished part of that period. Has Anne phoned today? Present perfect. Everything's correct. So today hasn't finished, right? It's almost 8 o'clock. Has Anne phoned today? We're looking at this period of Thursday, the 28th of September. She hasn't phoned yet. Did Anne phone today? Simple past. That's possible, because what we mean is earlier today, when her call was expected. So everything depends on the context, I guess. Maybe not everything, because frankly speaking, I'm telling you this as a teacher, there are black and white situations with simple past and present perfect, like clearly black and white. But this one isn't. This is where you have some freedom of choice. Yeah. And actually, it's even logical, don't you think? Okay, one more. Why is a past perfect tense used in A and not in B? Just to remind you, past perfect is the tense which you use to say that something happened before something else happened, right? So sentence A. When I had written my letters, I did some gardening. When I had written my letters, I did some gardening. And B, when I opened the door, the children ran in. Okay, so two maybe not similar situations, but you get the point. One action, action one, action two, action one, action two. Why past perfect? What's the story here? Any ideas? B is a finished, and B we have a finished action. Yola says, yes, it's a finished action exactly. I would say even that it's even more. It's like the opening of the door resulted in children running in, right? You opened the door and the children ran in. And in the first one, we are indicating a separation of these two actions. Okay, have a look. When I had opened the windows, I sat down and had a cup of tea. So first I opened the windows, and then after some time I sat down and had a cup of tea. And now I hear you shouting, but wait, sitting down happened first and having a cup of tea happened later. So maybe we should make another distinction here. And I'll tell you, hold your horses. We don't have to do that because that would be too much. Okay. First of all. Second of all, sitting down, having a cup of tea happened right after sitting down. It's kind of logical, isn't it? And anyway, if we are describing the past and we are describing a sequence of events, you know, one event and then another event and then another event, and they kind of happened very close to each other, we don't have to use past perfect. When I opened the window, the cat jumped out. That sounds more natural than with past perfect. And I think this is where I'm going to stop. So I have good news and bad news for you. What's the bad news? The bad news is that we are running out of time. The good news, I have two pieces of good news, I think, for you. One is that all these slides, the whole PDF presentation, you are going to get it by email from us. And there will be an additional section on modal verbs, which we won't do today. So that's good news. If you haven't taken any notes and you're panicking because there were so many interesting examples here, take it easy. You will have it all. So that's good news. Another piece of good news is that I think I have some more material, if you're interested in that, about such cases in grammar, and I'm gonna do another webinar about this year. Maybe not next month, maybe not in 2 or 3 months' time, but you know, sometime in spring, maybe. So you're all invited. And actually, I just wanted to let you know that I am very, very, very thankful for your participation in today's webinar. It was an honor to be speaking to you. Some of you are our students, Worldwide School students. So it's great to have you on board. If you're not a Worldwide School student, well, I'm inviting you to join our courses. I'd also like to tell you that taking the blue pill is a good strategy, right? Don't think too much about mistakes that you can make in grammar. Read about grammar, observe it, don't think about mistakes. Think about the way you communicate, and if what you say is understandable or not. Right? Try to speak in the way, or write in the way that's is communicative. I use these 3 books in preparing this webinar. There's a lot of really shitty grammar books available. Many of them are written by people who took the red pill, and they say this is wrong, this is wrong, this is how you should say it, and these are mistakes. These 3 books were written by people who took the blue pill, just like you have. And if you're interested in reading some more, have a look. That's David Crystal, Professor David Crystal. Very nice book called The English Language. Very funny. Yes, it's a very nice book. It's really exciting. It's not a typical grammar book, actually. It's just a book about English language. Mysteries of English Grammar. That's another good one. And some of you may have heard about Practical English Usage by Michael Swan. It's a classic grammar book. So thank you very much. Thank you for staying with me until 8 o'clock. And I hope to see you soon in another webinar. Thank you again. Bye-bye.